Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I ran into the problem doing the last stream, so I'm hoping that this stream stays stable. If it does not stay stable, I apologize. Meaning if it comes to just an abrupt end, then my signal has fallen short. Pay too goddamn much for internet for it to fail in much to the levels that it does. First and foremost, guys, I want to thank all the people who subscribe. I want to thank all my patrons. I want to thank all the people who like and share my videos. You guys are immensely appreciated, including the people who give super cash. I was making this argument. Somebody said, "Hey, isn't super cash bribery?" I said, "Yes, it is bribery. Just like, any capacity where you're giving somebody cash bribery, but you're bribing me. Essentially, my public. This is the bribery. The people who enjoy these secular sermons, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. In fact, I'm more than okay with it. When I think about expanding the channel between doing something that I think is a worthless endeavor, meaning, working in some regular tasks, and I gotta be honest, most of the jobs I've worked, I felt this is a worthless endeavor. This is doing something, some inane task just to put money in somebody else's pocket. If I have the capacity to do something that I believe in, and at the same time advocate for policies and positions that I think are vitally important into helping us, meaning the general public, I'm okay with that. I am absolutely okay with that. More than okay with that. I'm thrilled by it. I was doing this before I got anything from it, so yeah, I'm okay with it. I saw this and was extremely pissed off by this. Not because, again, and a lot of these times we get caught in these situations where it's like, do you really want to defend somebody who's a horrible person? No, I do not. No, I do not. Oftentimes, it is not the defense of the person. It is the defense of a particular principle that has larger consequences, or this kind of selective judgment that takes place. So it's, oh my God, Donald Trump is working for Russia. He's a puppet because he has business interests. But Hillary Clinton is not a puppet, even though she has business interests by the same government. Oh my God, Donald Trump in Russia. Donald Trump also has business interests in Saudi Arabia, but we don't say anything about that. We don't say anything about that. I'm making a point that it's the selective judgment. It's the selectiveness of it. If you're going to do something, do it. If you're going to have a principle that you're saying that you're going to stand by, then stand by that goddamn principle. This idea that you have this selective positioning, I don't like this particular person, so I am going to find reason to go after this person. This other person who I do like, who I find to be respectable, I am going to leave that person to their devices, even though that other person may be worse, but at the very least is doing the same thing. You see this on the left, you see this on the right, you see this just in politics in general, and now you're going to see it on an international stage. These people have no integrity whatsoever in regards to the way they're going about their affairs. And shamelessly, is going after an international leader. I am not against them going after this guy. This guy is a fucking maniac. I would say this guy is an outright killer. So yeah, he should be prosecuted. But how? How do you look at one person who has an inkling of the murders associated with them than what we've done? Are you fucking kidding me? Where's your legitimacy if you're going to give one a pass, but you're going to go after somebody else? I find that to be amazing. And I understand people will say, well, dude, but this guy's horrible. Yes, this guy's horrible. But there are other horrible people in the world that was there before this guy ever got into office. How do you choose one and ignore the other? I said in my videos early back, I said, if an African dictator did half of what George Bush did half of what Obama did, for that matter, is doing what Donald Trump does, they would have dragged his ass before a criminal court. Again, I turn out to be absolutely right. No, he's not an African dictator, but he's close. ICC launches crimes against humanity inquiry into Duerte's war on drugs. Preliminary inquiry into Philippines president is ICC's first in a southeastern nation. The International Criminal Court has launched an initial inquiry into allegations of crimes against humanity committed by Rodrigo Duerte, the Philippines president, in his brutal drug crusade. A report submitted to the ICC last year laid out evidence that Duerte had been directly responsible for extrajudicial executions and mass murder over 3 decades since he began his war on drugs as mayor of Davao in 1988. According to official statistics, 4,000 people have been killed by the police in anti-drug operations since Duerte became president. However, the 77-page report submitted by Philippines lawyer Jude Sabayo alleged the death toll was over 8,000. The ICC prosecutor Fatayo Bensoda, I'm profoundly sorry for fucking up these names, said in a statement that her office would analyze criminal crimes alleged committed. Since at least July 1st, 2016, in the context of a war on drugs campaign, the inquiry will be the ICC's first preliminary examination in a southeastern nation. Gary Alejo, an opposition president who tried to get Duerte impeached last year and submitted evidence to the ICC as part of the complaint, said the move was an affirmation that the claims against Duerte had legitimacy and if offered a ray of hope for the victims on his war of drugs, which is still ongoing right now. Now, this guy's right. Duerte is a fucking maniac. He's compared himself to wanting to be like Hitler in regards to murdering drug dealers. Should you be put in a cage for smoking a plant? Should you be murdered for smoking a plant? Should you be put in a cage for selling a plant or selling some other substance? Should you be murdered for selling some other substance? I mean, I'm making the point that even if your society says drugs are wrong, even if you personally believe that people doing those things are wrong, do you believe that they should be murdered? Do you think they should be murdered? Are there other ways of dealing with drug crimes that go beyond murder? What about dealing with your society itself? Meaning, why are those people needing or wanting or needing to get their hands on those drugs in the first place? Are there ways? Are there better options as opposed to just outright, we're going to murder these people. We're going to push them off the game board. So I am okay with this. I have no issue with them going after this guy in this way. Yes, he should be dragged before the criminal court. Fair enough. Grab him. Get him. Prosecute him for crimes against humanity. Whatever. Have at it. This is no defense of Duarte. This is asking for a question of legitimacy. This is asking about a question of integrity of your institution. How? How? Explain to me. How? George Bush invaded a country. He lied to this nation saying that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq and then changed the pretext for this war over and over again when that relationship cannot be found. He murdered 1 million Iraqis. He's finger painting right now, hawking his book of painting. I understand that Duerte is a bad guy. George Bush killed 1 million people. George Bush was torturing people. He wrote it in his fucking book that he was torturing people, trying to make a link between Saddam Hussein and 9/11, a link that couldn't be established because there was no link. There was no link. There were also no weapons of mass destruction. None. There were none. George Bush used the United States military, leveraged their bravery to go into a country to murder upwards of 1 million Iraqis. Now, if you want to say, well, dude, that's not fair to say it was murder. If you're going to use your military to bash in another country, what do you call that? Do you believe that those are Nerf bombs? Certainly you understand that the actions that you're taking is going to murder and kill a lot of people. And if you're doing that under what's a lie, then yeah, that's murder. You knew the consequences of what you were going to do were going to be to kill a lot of people. That's murder. It was foreseeable. It was amply foreseeable. The people that were murdered, the people that were injured, he destroyed that country, sending multiple people fleeing into other nations, setting the pretext for ISIS. How many people did ISIS killed? How many? When they were putting people in cages and they were drowning those people or setting those people afire or chopping those people's heads off, do you understand that the pretext of that, the thing that allowed all of that to take place in the first place, was the smashing of Iraq and then chest thumping as he was doing it, shock and awe, shock and awe. How is Duerte your guy? Just because George Bush wears a suit, how is Duerte your guy? Where's your legitimacy? Where's your legitimacy? This seems very selective. That's what I'm saying. This seems immensely selective. You could use Obama for giving Bush a pass, going behind and continuing his murderous rampage. And by the way, if you want to make the point that this was extra-constitutional, what legitimacy is the United States using to go into the 7 nations that Obama expanded the war into? We did not have just cause to attack Iraq in the first place. We didn't have just cause. So we have one illegal action followed by multiple illegal actions, because Obama went in multiple countries. He expanded those wars in 7. We are in 70% of the nations around this world. Right now, we are in Syria, illegally killing Syrian members of that military, risking a larger conflict, a larger war with Russia. But when you look at the world, Duerte is the problem. That guy is the problem. 1 billion fucking people. Are you shitting me? What you're saying is this guy has killed 4,000 people by police, by extrajudicial murders by police. 4,000. 4,000. When I made the point that if an African drug lord did even half of what George Bush did, you would drag his ass before criminal court. The point I was making was that you have no legitimacy. You have zero legitimacy. You have zero integrity. There is no way you can have integrity. There is no way you can have legitimacy if what you're doing is selective. Do you understand that the reason why you see justice in court buildings with blindfolds on? Why do you think that? You think that was just a nice aesthetic that they added to that? They put the blindfolds on because they wanted to say justice was blind. That the only way that you can have actual, earnest justice, this intangible concept, this esoteric concept of justice, any measure of justice, the only way you can have it is if you weren't necessarily looking at the accoutrements that were associated with the people around you. Meaning, I am blind to all of this stuff. I am doing this equally and even-handedly. How can we own up to this idea that the International Criminal Court is behaving equally and honestly and earnestly when George Bush is finger painting? When Obama is doing whatever Obama is doing. I mean, essentially being a lobbyist for Democrats. And when Donald Trump right now, in order to hide the murders that he was going to commit with the United States military, also leveraging the bravery of these people who believe that they're doing good things, was to move the murders into the CIA so that those things can be done outside the confines of law with other people looking at the number of people that he's murdering and killing. By the way, those murders have escalated. It was said that 90% of the people that Obama killed were civilians. Now, you could say that number is less than that. Let's say that number is 70%. Let's say that number is 60%. At the end of the day, however, you're still just murdering civilians. You ever so often hit a terrorist. You're murdering civilians. Donald Trump has escalated that. To put that in context, Obama dropped 26,000, more than 26,000 bombs when he was leaving office. That last year in 2016. Trump has escalated that. He is less picky about the sites that he bombs. So yes, he kills a lot more civilians than Obama did. Even though Obama, the majority of the people that he was killing were civilians. So put that in context. Meaning the number of people Obama was murdering spiked when Trump took office. I should say the number of people Trump murdered spiked. Or the number of people that the United States military was murdering spiked when Trump took office. How? How? How do you end up on Duerte? The cornucopia of the world. Mass murderers and killers. Some wear suits, some don't. How, out of all this mix, do you choose Duerte and you expect the world to give you some level of legitimacy in choosing this person? Yes, this person is a killer. Yes, this person has done immensely bad things. Yes, this is somebody who you should drag before the criminal court. But are you telling me that Tony Blair, Bush, especially George Bush, Dick Cheney, are you telling me that these people are somehow blameless and these people are not? After murdering 1 million Iraqis, after destroying that region of the world, after continuing to kill in those regions of the world without constitutional authority to do so. Obama had no constitutional authority to expand the war into those 7 states in that way. It was illegal. By our own laws, it was illegal. By international law, it was illegal. Why was he not dragged before the Hague if criminality is not the issue? How was George Bush not dragged? And I know it's not the Hague, this is International Criminal Court. How are these people not dragged before the International Criminal Court? How? How? Explain to me. Explain to me. How do you keep your legitimacy as an organization to prosecute people who are doing crimes? That's the first point, from an international standpoint. And if you have any level of legitimacy, if you have any level of credibility, that justice is blind, that you're not necessarily paying attention to the fact that these guys are in suits and supposed to this other guy is in a smaller country. If you have any level of legitimacy as a criminal court, if justice is indeed blind, where is your integrity? Out of the cornucopia of people who you could choose for war crimes, how do you completely bypass somebody who murdered 1 million people, who have 1 million people dead associated with his name? How do you completely bypass the people who are affiliated with him, meaning Dick Cheney and that fucking sniveling asshole Tony Blair? How do you ignore architects of a war that killed 1 million people and end up on Duerte? Are you shitting me? Are you shitting me? Look, this seems profound. This is insane. That's all I'm saying. You lose a massive amount of legitimacy when you look around the world and the person who you end up on is Duerte. Is it because Philippines is a smaller nation that you can bully and that you can push around, whereas opposed to the United States, where if you actually went for somebody who was actually real, who was actually, if you had teeth to your organization, that the actual inquiry you will look into is, wait a minute, the United States is bullying the rest of the world. The United States did something that created a mass exodus from the Middle East into Europe. What we did destabilized that region of the world. Those refugees who are streaming into London or streaming into Europe, that's completely destabilizing their politics with regard to all these left or right wingers getting in power because they don't want to deal with the immigration issue. You have all of these people streaming into the country, destabilizing the politics of Europe. Why? Why? Because we attacked a nation, killing 1 million people. We created a pretext that allowed the Middle East to essentially end up in flames, whether you want to talk about Libya, Iraq, whether you want to talk about Afghanistan, whether you want to talk about Syria. Come on! Where's your legitimacy? That's what I'm asking. Where's your legitimacy? Where? If you want to get Duerte, get Duerte. But at least own up to, you go after people from smaller nations because you don't want to deal with the political consequences of going after somebody who's actually deserving of being dragged before the criminal court. You have no legitimacy. That's my point. That's my point. It's fucking embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. Let's see. Let's one or two of these before I end this one. Anon. Oh yeah, definitely don't want to do that. Getting him in front of an international human rights court sounds good though. But regime change is our thing. Regime change is our thing. Obama dropping more bombs than the Bible. Got bombs. Terry Hall, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Pat Hacker reminds me of the war in Panama to get Noriega. Tony Blair, he in the UK managed to get out a conviction also for the Iraq war. Anon, look, we pretend as if because the President of the United States is wearing a suit that he should somehow not be held accountable for the things that he does in the world. That is an insane perspective. When Obama took that office, the first thing Obama should have did, even if it mucked up the process, should have been to prosecute Bush. You prosecute because you don't want the behavior to be replicated later on. Yes, we prosecuted this guy because this guy invaded a country, killed 1 million people. And we, the United States, believe in the rule of law and that even the President of the United States is not a goddamn king. He can be held to account for the things that he does. That's what you do when you take office. Now you have Donald Trump who's talking about nuclear bombs. The president has no restraints because the last president allowed the first president to do shit like that to get off. And he wasn't the first. I mean, yeah, I understand that. But he killed 1 million people. He completely destabilized every region of the world. And to this day, we're still there. We spent trillions in Iraq. We can't pay for education. We can't pay for high-speed rail. We can't pay to make sure the internet is from pillar to post in this entire nation. We can't pay for healthcare. But we can pay trillions of dollars for a war that, for all intents and purposes, should never have taken place. For a war that killed 1 million people, for a war that completely destabilized the region, for a war in which the United States military has leveraged its bravery to do very bad things. To do very bad things. It is a crime that Bush walked. And in the UK, yes, I would hope that you guys would have been a little bit better than us and convicted Tony Blair. Yeah. William Walters, one's skin has to be a certain darkness to be target of the ICC. Agreed. I would say that's manifestly true. I said before, if it was an African nation and a dictator even did a little bit of what George Bush did, they would have hauled his ass to account. Duerte may not be an African dictator, but he's in a small nation where they can bully and push around. So yes, we don't like what you did. That's bad. You killed 4,000 people. Meanwhile, the United States, who killed 1 million people in Iraq over trumped up charges that didn't really exist, scot-free. He's finger painting. That guy's finger painting right now. Amazing. We must solve the problem. We can't let whites govern when they have a collective intellect of third graders. That's funny. RBR Network. Money for murder. Pet hacker. Many of our call centers and news aggregating occurs in the Philippines. Fair enough. Whether it occurs there or not, I'm just making this point that if the ICC is to have any legitimacy at all, how on earth do you go after Duerte as being one of the major problems? The United States has been invading one country after the next. No pushback from anywhere else. International powers allows this to take place. One country after the next. We've killed thousands. We killed 1 million people in Iraq alone. What about the countries where we were putting in strongmen and terrorists? What about undermining Iran, putting in, essentially destroying that country, turning them from a secular government, putting in a dictator, a brutal dictator. And in the moment where they rebel and they kick out that dictator and they end up with this kind of religious theocrat, then the United States is pissed off that we kicked out their dictator. I mean, come on. Are you fucking kidding me? What are the consequences of our actions around the globe? And if you're going to have this kind of criminal court, if you're going to call yourself an international criminal court, how do you ignore that? How do you ignore that and retain any level of legitimacy? That's what I'm asking. It's not that Duerte is not a bad guy. Yes, prosecute Duerte. How is George Bush walking? How do you retain any level of legitimacy and ignore George Bush and Tony Blair? That's what I'm asking. That would never be answered. But the honest question, or honest answer to that is, look, George Bush has on a suit. And George Bush was acting as a president of the United States, so, you know, it's okay. The decisions that he make are just Nerf footballs. He killed 1 million people, but those were Nerf bombs that he was dropping on those 1 million people. Besides, they were brown, so it didn't matter. They were brown, so it didn't matter. They were from countries that couldn't defend themselves, so it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Duerte is not from a country that can defend himself. Duerte has a skin color that, you know, we're okay prosecuting, we're okay dragging before criminal court. Tony Blair would not be called to account. George Bush would not be called to account. Obama would not be called to account. None of these people would be called to account. None of them. But the criminal court, looking at all of the things that these people have done, come to the conclusion that of all of them, despite United States president murdering 1 million people, despite the next president coming in having a body count in the thousands, with the majority of those people being civilians, despite these policies and these behaviors, these policies being grossly illegal by national law and by international law, despite all that, Bush was torturing people against international law. Said it himself, owned up to it. But the problem here is Duerte. The problem here is Duerte. He hasn't killed a fraction of the number of people that George Bush did. Yes, he's killed a fraction, but I'm making the point that it's just a fraction of what George Bush did. It's just a fraction of what Obama did. And it will be a fraction of what Trump did. But the problem here, when we look at the entire world, because it's international, the problem here is Duerte. Come on. Yeah, come on. This is insane. RBR Network. You address some racists who come to power by making sure they never again come to power. You want a Marxist, communist Bernie Sanders who will be worse. I don't know how a Marxist, communist Bernie Sanders will be worse. Obama only killed 1 civilian, and that was a limo driver for Osama bin Laden. Racists are simply lying about Obama. Obama killed terrorists, and we have every right. They attacked America. You are insane. If you believe that, you're insane. You're a Kool-Aid drinker. Obama killed 1 American. You understand that Obama was bombing all of these different countries. Now, in your mind, all of these different countries and the people who live in these countries are all terrorists. You're insane. You're insane. Obama killed more than 1 American. It's amazing to me that you're taking a position that because of people aren't Americans that they're fair game. You're fucking insane. You're fucking insane. That's my position on this. You're fucking insane. If you believe that Obama only killed one, do you know the logic and the argument that Obama made for this, or that Eric Holder made for this? The judicial due process under law doesn't have to come through the judicial branch. The President of the United States sent his lapdog out to make the argument that the President of the United States can murder whenever the President of the United States wanted to. If you're backing that up, you're fucking insane. If Donald Trump uses that exact same power, you would be on here screaming, "Oh my God, Donald Trump just killed an American." Be honest. Be honest. If you honestly believe, do you realize some of the tactics they were using? They would drop a bomb and they would say if anybody is in a particular area and was 16 years or older, they were fair game. Meaning, Obama was okay murdering kids. And knowingly murdered kids. And then lied, saying that, we're not murdering, civilians in this area. These are terrorists. These are terrorists. They weren't terrorists. A lot of those people were civilians. They just so happened to be in the wrong area. They did not know who they were murdering. And by the way, Obama killed more than one person. Chelsea Manning. What did Chelsea Manning reveal? He revealed showing that the United States murdered a Reuters agent. Now, they didn't put or do anything to the person who was doing murdering. They did something to Chelsea herself. Just by your own standpoint, what you're saying is wrong. And if you're going to discount the lives of all of the millions or the thousands of people that Obama murdered, and by the way, this is not racist saying this. This is HuffPost. I've said this in my other videos. You can see my evidence in my other videos. It is sad that this is a perspective that you're taking. Discounting the lives of these other people just because you have some fetish for Obama. Yeah, he was a fucking murderer. And he should also be dragged before the International Criminal Court in the same way that Trump should be dragged before the criminal court, in the same way that Bush should be dragged before the criminal court. That's my point. Mr. Spinks, the globalists use the ICC to exact political pressure against countries who currently are out of sync with geopolitical norms. Yes, agreed. Terry Hall, you have a lot of research to do, man. Yeah, he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Steve in Northern Virginia, human inquiry must be a smokescreen, and Duerte is not playing ball with NATO's interests. That may be it. That may be it. It's one of those things where selective justice is not justice. That's the main point. If you're going to look at Trump and say, and the left has been doing this, by the way. The left has been flagrant in this. Lionizing the FBI, lionizing the CIA purely because they're going after agents they don't particularly like, meaning Donald Trump. If you're going to say that Donald Trump is business interests and Donald Trump is a robot, this is the Cenk Uygur argument, then the first question becomes, okay, what is he doing to get across this thing that there is association there? Meaning, if you're right, then he should be doing things that should be assisting Russia. Now, I've explained how they're bringing us to the brink of war. They're bringing us to the brink of war. And undercutting the fact that they're doing that, pretending as if that taking place is not that big of a deal, is a problem. It's a problem. It makes more war inevitable, not less. Not less. If you believe that he is a robot, then you need to be able to show that he is a robot, and I have not seen that. I have not seen that. The criminal court and this idea of selective judgment is selective justice. It's not justice. If justice is not blind, it is not justice. It's political agency at that point. You're using the laws as a political hatchet to get across the things and affect the judgments that you want to affect. So in this case, even though Donald Trump has business interests with Saudi Arabia, even though Donald Trump has business interests with something like Turkey or Israel, we ignore that. That's ignored. That's put to the side. Hillary Clinton, business interests with Russia, with the lionized FBI having an informant saying so outright in testimony. Loretta Lynch shutting him up with an NDA. They had to literally get past an illegal NDA to get that man to testify. And what he started singing, he started saying, I was involved in making sure Hillary Clinton got a bunch of money from Russia. Nobody cares about this. Hillary Clinton got elected. Nobody would care about this. Nobody would care about her entanglements with Saudi Arabia. Cenk Uygur would not be making that argument. He wouldn't be making that argument at all. He wouldn't even be making an argument about Russia. And the only argument he's ever made about Hillary Clinton was Yeah, that happened in the past. That happened in the past. I don't want them to open a special prosecutor on this. I don't understand. I just don't understand. Why are you okay with some people being under influence? Why are you okay with the Saudi influence or the Israeli influence? But the Russia influence is the big deal. It is selective judgment. It is selective judgment. Same thing with the criminal court. It is selective judgment. It is not justice. It's not justice. You can't have justice in this case. Ultimately, they're selectively going after people as opposed to going after the people who actually have a larger body count. And the argument of, well, you have to get who you can get. Well, at that point, no. It's selective judgment. You either get everybody, meaning if you're going to be fair and honest, then you need to be fair and honest. And if you're going to have a certain amount of integrity about what your position, you should have a certain amount of integrity about your position. It is laughable. It is laughable to go after Duerte when people like Bush and Obama and Trump have a body count that is easy to prove. It's there. Behaving illegally by our own laws. It is there. Ignoring Tony Blair. It is there. And jumping to Duerte. For that matter, why not Putin? Why not Putin? I mean, I'm just making a point that you can make an argument for multiple leaders. What about Saudi? What about them chopping heads off in Saudi Arabia? What about that? How do you end up on this? That's what I'm getting at. What is your process of selection? And shouldn't you show that process of selection so people can evaluate it and know whether it's fair or not? Because I gotta be honest, it looks fucking insane that you splay out all of the people who have issues, all of the people who are doing bad things. And of those people, you pick Duerte. That is a fucking bizarre selection process. That's what I want to see. Terry Hall, there's more evidence of Hillary's collusion with Russia against Trump and the other way around to mass media. Agreed. What about Israel's apartheid? Yes, what about Israel's apartheid? I mean, come on. This process is a fucking sham. It is an absolute sham. Saudi Arabia is on a Human Rights Council at the UN. That is a joke. That is a joke. How does Saudi Arabia get on the UN Council of Human Rights? That is a joke. That is a joke. You guys are a farce. You guys are a farce. RBR Network. Unless RBR Network is a subscriber, then, I mean a patron, then RBR Network is not calling in. Mr. Spinks. Besides, dude, I'm sorry, your position is somewhat incompetent. Like, it's one thing if you're arguing, you have facts on your side. You don't. You don't. I'm sorry, you don't. If you honestly believe that Obama killed one person, there's no point in you calling in. You don't know what you're talking about. If you're being honest, any honest person, I've never heard anybody make that case, because nobody will make that case in an honest fashion. I've heard people make an argument for Democrats and would still be honest about the number of people that Obama was murdering. And they would make the case saying, well, look, he didn't have a choice. He was weak. He didn't have a choice. His military commanders told him to do it. He did what his military commanders told him to do. He didn't have a choice. They would make that argument. I've heard Ben Jealous make that argument. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. Just got the numbers only for patrons. Steve in Northern Virginia, China and NK are not bombing anyone. True. Yeah, true. He said, tell brother the truth. What's the phone number? I call it to tell brother the truth. What's the truth? You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. Adored Pariah was watching the last video on Door. Didn't see you live. Also, great breakdown there. Thank you very much. Of course, the facts, you can't make up the facts. Drone targets were top secret, so they couldn't tell you who was being targeted. Dude, you're insane. What about Libya? What about Libya? So, when Obama is paying terrorists to undermine Syrian government, you believe that that's constitutional and that's a good thing to do. What about Libya? When they're bombing Libyans, turning that place into a dumpster fire, are you saying that nobody in Libya were civilians, that all of those people who were murdered, the open-air slave markets that's resulting from the bombings that we did in association with France and the UK? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You're functionally insane. I'm sorry. The Robert, non-military presidents trust the military. Military presidents trust the military is a lose-lose. Yeah, agreed. I think it's clear someone in deep state has beef with Duerte and wants the Democratic elected president of Philippines replaced. Pet hacker, that may be true because I got to be honest, it is impossible to look at all of the people who are in association, meaning all of these killers running these countries, our country included, and then of that end up with, yeah, it's Duarte's the problem. It's Duarte. Duarte's the problem. M99, the ones who don't trust the military get JFK'd, the Robert. Yeah, it's funny. Kennedy was in this association of, I don't know if you remember, the CIA was talking about making up plans to attack Cuba. And making up plans to attack Cuba, they were talking about creating false flags in Florida to make it look like Cuba attacked us, trying to create a pretext for the United States to attack Cuba. The United States was trying to undermine the Cuban government in the same way it was trying to undermine the Syrian government and the Iraqi government and the Libyan government, etc., etc., etc. They tried to kill Castro multiple times. And in trying to kill Castro multiple times, Castro said, I need help on this, pulling in the Soviet Union, putting missiles in Cuba to prevent the United States from taking Cuba in the same way that it's been trying to do in places of the Middle East. We ginned up war, a nuclear war, just like we're doing now. It's as if people believe that our actions around the globe don't have consequences. They do. They absolutely do. Yes, Jamal, they just had a small delay in change of the venue. Couldn't get around it until 2001. Yeah. Oh, God, listen to this. This is awesome. RBI Network. Yes, I'm saying Gaddafi wasn't a civilian. No. I am talking about the people of that country. That's what I'm talking about. That's what you're fundamentally missing. Do you believe that each and every person in that country was a problem? By that logic, by the way, whether Gaddafi was a quote-unquote Marxist dictator, what's kind of besides the point? What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Is the United States a country of laws or not? And do these countries of laws allows us to randomly knock over other governments, creating fires? Is your argument, honestly, are you really making an honest argument that the United States, whenever the United States wants, can topple other countries, that it can kick them over, that we have just cause and pretext to attack other countries? And if that is your logic, then shouldn't other countries have that same right? Meaning, if Russia interfered with our elections, which I don't believe, but if they did, so what? By your logic, Russia is justified in doing so. Your logic doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And to say that because drone wars were secret, that nobody knows the number of people that was murdered from those countries, that makes no sense. RBR, all I'm saying is listen to what you're saying. What you're saying makes no sense. It flies in the face of all that is known about that drone program, all that is known about the murders that the military was carrying out, all that is known about this stuff. Even your logic in the United States murdering a civilian, meaning murdering another American, is flawed. Do you understand that they murdered, I can't think of his name right now, Alawat, whatever, it's, you know what I'm getting at. They murdered him, an American citizen. They also, at the same time, murdered his son. By your own logic, you're wrong. He murdered more than one American. And if I'm not mistaken, murdered his daughter also. That's at least 2 Americans. You're factually wrong, even on the point that you made. And I'm sorry, it is somewhat massively moral to say that it is okay for the United States to go murdering people in other countries, and the only person you break up is one, as if murdering civilians in other countries don't count. It counts. I'm sorry, your president was a murderer. Get over it. Darren Druin, Libya is now an anarchist state. The United States is responsible. Think of all the death and destruction that was resulted from this. Yes. By your own logic, you're wrong. Some get it, some are clueless. Yes, unfortunately, some are clueless. M99, if a drone strike kills even one person in the area, it's too much when we shouldn't be there in the first place. M99, you're making too much sense, M99. You're making too much sense. Drone strikes are execution without trial. Peter Lemmerman, yes, they are. Yes, they are. Agreed. The Robert, oil and money trumps ethics and stability. Trump has no ethics in this way. Trump is just as bad as Obama was, if not worse. RBR is either a troll or he's deluded Obama fan. Pet hacker, it could be one of both. It doesn't really matter. I would prefer he be a troll. God, I hope he's a troll. God, I hope he's a troll. I don't want him to be this clueless. Even if they were terrorists, they needed due process. The United States shouldn't play God. Anon agreed. And I got to be honest. If you're saying the guy was Obama's limo driver, he wasn't Obama's limo. I mean, he wasn't Osama bin Laden's limo driver, by the way. He was an American citizen. And two, if they went in to get Osama bin Laden, they should have brought his ass back for trial. When did the United States become such pussies and such cowards that they wouldn't bring his ass into New York to stand trial? Wouldn't that show this kind of dominance of the American way by saying, yes, this is what this guy did and this guy is going to stand trial under the United States criminal justice system? And if he is found guilty, he would either be executed or forced into American prisons. That's due process in the law. That's justice. What we did was execution and murder. What we've been doing in those countries is murder. I don't know what you're talking about, RBR. And God, I hope you're a troll. I hope you're not this clueless. I think he is this clueless. Skip Rock. I say we put a wall on the border north and south and stop immigration, stop bombing, legalize weed, legalize hookers, make it legal to get rid of college debt and bankruptcy, and we'll be fine. Skip Rock, I can't. I don't know about the border wall, but the other stuff, I agree with you. The other stuff, I agree with you. Like if you're saying prostitution should be, yes. If you're saying pot should be legal, yes. But I think most things should be legal. I don't think we should. Look, I think the moment that you make something illegal, you create somewhat of a black market for that particular thing. So drugs are illegal. Why are drugs illegal? What right did the United States government say that you can't personally do something and we're going to put you in a cage if you do it? Yeah, Skip Rock, I agree with you on half of that stuff, on most of that stuff. All presidents murder, wars, permission, end wars, and killing get contracted to be mercenaries. Yeah, that's what takes place to Robert. That's what takes place. All right, so I'm gonna end this one. I'm not gonna keep this one long. I may have a show this evening. I tried to have one last night, but it was overlapped on Jimmy Dore show. So, for my patrons, you guys are more than welcome to call into the show. And I want to thank you guys for donating. Look, I want to thank my patrons. And I use the call-in thing as kind of reward for support. There are other rewards on the patron list, including viewer appreciation day that I think I'm going to have on the 15th of each month. I've said that anybody donating, I think it's like 10 or 15 bucks, one of them, there will be a drawing for a t-shirt. So that's going to be one of the things that comes up on Patron Appreciation Day. That being said, even though patrons can call in, everybody else can still send their chats like everything else, so super chats, and I'll read them out. Everybody can still send their regular chats, and I would also get to those. So the show doesn't really change that much. It changes from the standpoint of me trying to give a little bit more oomph to people who donate in Patreon. But whether you donate or not, guys, I appreciate all of your support. And like I said, I still read out the comments, even people who disagree with me, like RBR. Like RBR. I didn't dismiss you. Wait a minute, RBR. And no, you can't simply dismiss me for telling the truth. And no, I couldn't support lies and Marxist takeover of the United States government is treason. It is impossible. It is impossible to say that you were dismissed when I read out your chats. And even though I think you're insane, I still read out your chats. And no, I wasn't dismissing you when I'm quoting facts to you that are I didn't even realize that there were people out there who dismiss those particular facts, who disagree with those things. Like, even people who back up Obama would agree that, oh my God, yeah, he was drone striking and he was murdering civilians. I would say do a search on HuffPost. HuffPost or Obama champions. HuffPost say Hillary Clinton winning that election by 98% on the day that she lost that election to a maniac. If you also think they're Marxists, I think you're weird. I don't think you're weird. I think that's off the wall. If HuffPost is even putting out things saying, yes, Obama was murdering civilians. Yes, Obama killed a lot of people. Yes, Obama dropped 26,000 bombs. If his own cheerleaders own up to this, then I don't know where you stand. This comes across to me as denying climate change. But even worse, people who deny climate change at least can say, I can't touch it, I can't feel it, I can't do any of this stuff. People who are denying this are like birthers. I don't know how you deny that Obama killed a lot of people. Now, if you say that Obama was justified in murdering a lot of people, that's different. That's different. But denying it, yeah, I think you're massively dismissing evidence against the person that you like. And yes, I begin to dismiss other stuff when I think that you're dismissing reality. But you can't say that you were being ignored. You can't say you were being dismissed in any way. When I aired your argument, I just fundamentally, well, to that matter, reality disagrees with you. So, yeah. It's cultural Marxist. Yeah, I don't know what it is. He's misinformed. Yes, he is. Sorry, my man. Currently, my patron is with Holly Siegler. The Robert, that's perfectly okay. You can still comment. You can still comment. Holly is cool people. Holly is cool people. I like her. I like her. If at any point you decide you want to expand that, Robert, then you too will be able to call into the show. Regardless, like my videos, share my videos. You, like all my other subscribers, patrons, people who donate super cash, you guys are all appreciated. So, I will leave it at that. Alright guys, if you enjoy the show, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you guys can always support through Patreon. Thanks guys.